Hey, Jeff Lerner here, and in this video, we're going to be talking to teenagers about how to set yourself up, if you're a teenager, for a successful financial life for the rest of your life. Which means this video obviously is for teenagers, but it's also for parents, because as a parent, you probably want your teen to succeed in this world. And if you're anything like me, sometimes it lands better if it comes from someone else. Sometimes teenagers love taking advice from anyone but their parents, so maybe have your teen watch this video if you're a parent and you're watching this. But whether you're a teen or you're a parent, we are going to be talking about what I'm calling millionaire investing advice. Basically, if you want to be a millionaire, and I'm pretty sure you do, these are the things you can start working on now that are within your control as a teenager. Obviously, as a teenager, not everything's in your control. These are things that are within your control, things you can start putting in place right now, literally at 13, 14, 16, 17, 18 years old. Honestly, stuff I wish somebody had told me. Why don't they teach this in schools? It's maddening. I won't go on a whole rant about it, but let's just say it is absolutely frustrating that they don't teach this stuff in schools, because frankly, this would do a lot more to set teenagers up for future success in life, a lot more than 99% of the stuff that they do teach in high school and grade school. But I ain't gonna change that system anytime soon, but at least I can hopefully change your life and give you some great information. So let's do it. How to set yourself up for a kick-butt, awesome life down the road, becoming a millionaire as fast as possible, retiring as fast as possible. And when I say retire, I don't mean get old and play golf and physically deteriorate. I mean like actually not have to trade all your time away for survival money at an age when you're actually young enough to enjoy it. I can say from experience, I'm 40 years old. I have reached a point now where I don't have to go to work like most people. And it's amazing, not just because, of the luxury of time freedom, but the luxury of time freedom at an age where I'm actually young enough to really, really enjoy it and to travel and to exercise and do fun stuff and go places and be adventurous and actually enjoy my time with my kids. The general paradigm of the world says that, well, once you get old enough that you're not actually with your kids anymore, let's say you're 65 or 70 and your kids are 30 or 40, then you can have this sunset that you ride off into, and you can enjoy your last few years. Like, that's the model we live in. I actually get to see my kids every day, and I teach them this stuff because I want them to be able to see their kids every day when they're my age. And that's really what this is about. This isn't just like little tricks to try to get an edge in life. This is like a way to, if you start now, to fundamentally and dramatically shift the trajectory of your life. And the reason I'm saying this to start is because, I was a teenager. I know teenagers. I have teenagers. Sometimes, God bless you, like, no offense, but it's hard to like shake you and get you to pay attention sometimes. It's hard to get you to care sometimes about certain things. And I want you to know, this isn't a little thing. This isn't saying, hey, do these things that'll help you pass the test, or it'll help you get into better school, or help you make an extra $5,000 a year once you get into the job market. No. This will completely transform and redirect your future from the standard life that most people have to the awesome life that a few people have, where you can literally avoid decades of what you likely don't want, which is to not have control of your time, to not have that freedom, to not have that independence that's so important to teenagers and to all grown people, but that most adults kind of learn to live without, because they don't really have the option, because they didn't start when they were young doing the really smart, really prudent and strategic things to give themselves that option. And I know, because I was perilously close to total disaster and total ruin. I did not do these things in my 20s, and frankly got to a point where when I was 28, I was at a crux. I was at like a crux of my life, where if I hadn't been able to very quickly generate a lot of income and really make some changes and get a lot of this stuff in place really fast, frankly, faster than most people are really ever likely to be able to do. I was like having to make up for so much lost time and backtrack so much that it just would have been so much easier if I had started 10 years early. And frankly, most people in that situation don't figure out affiliate marketing and strike the right chord at the right time like I did and go from 40 grand a year to 40 grand a month. Like I was I was lucky in a lot of ways. And you don't want to have a life plan that says, well, let me screw it up for the next 10 years. And then in my late 20s, maybe I'll get lucky like Jeff did and everything will pivot. That's not a life plan. Start now, do it smart. You don't have to get lucky. You can be 10 years ahead of me. Where I am at 40, you could be at 30. Let's get into them. First of all, however young you are, get a bank account. Go get a checking account. If you can find a bank that'll let you be on it without your parents, that's fine. If you're under 18, that's perhaps not likely depending on where you live. But start building both banking history and credit history. Now, you might not think that you can get a credit card, but actually anybody can get a credit card, even if you have no credit, if you go out and get a secured credit card. So you can go on Google and just search for secured credit cards. Discover has a really good one. Capital One has a pretty good one. And basically, these are credit cards where you put like $500 in the bank, and then the bank will give you a card that has a $500 credit limit. And that way, they don't really care if you ever don't pay it back. They'll just take the money that you put in the bank. So obviously, you don't want to default on the credit card. You'll lose the money. You'll screw up your credit. It'll defeat the whole point. But as long as you can front a little bit of cash, anybody can get a credit card. And then you start building credit history. Now, think about it. If you're 15 years old and you start doing this, by the time, let's say you're 24 and you want to, let's say, go get a loan on a rental property and they pull up and you have 9 years of credit history. Okay, I was like around 24 when I first started trying to get rental properties and get into real estate investing, and I didn't have much money. I was having to operate entirely on credit. And I ended up having to wait a couple years just because I had to build enough credit that I could even start the conversations with lenders to get loans. And that was back in like 2004? 2004. I think I was 25 years old. It's harder now. Now, what took me 2 years then would take me 5 or 10 years now. So you got to have that credit history when you go out and start trying to do more sophisticated things and getting involved in, what we call good debt, bank financing for investments and such. So start now establishing both a credit history and banking history. Get on a checking account, get yourself a secured credit card. And then the next thing you want to do, even again, if you have to have your parents help you set it up, is set up a Roth IRA. Now, the great thing about a Roth IRA, and like I'm not a huge proponent of a lot of, the traditional structured investment vehicles. Like I don't rely that much, I don't know. I haven't had a job since I was 16 years old, so I've never really had much of an option to rely on a 401k. But I don't put much stock in 401ks, pensions, even Social Security. Like I don't think we can really bank on any of that. But a Roth IRA is just a structure for you to put your own money into. And it's a very good structure because what it allows you to do is basically put what we call post-tax money. So it's money that you earn and you pay taxes on, and then you have your post-tax money. But then you can put it into a vehicle where it can grow tax-free. And without getting into too much math, if you understand essentially the power of compounding, the fact that every time you make a gain in that account, let's say you put $2,000 in and it goes to $3,000. So you have $1,000 of what they would call a capital gain. Normally, you would have to, at the end of the year, you'd have to pay tax on that $1,000. So let's say you pay 25% capital gains tax or 20%. Now your $3,000 is down to $2,800 because you had to pay $200 of the $1,000. And now the next year you can only grow from a base of $2,800. But because it's tax deferred sitting in this account, you can grow from the base of the full $3,000. And that might not sound like that much, but if you compound that over years and years and decades of every single year, not having to pay that capital gain percentage out every year, not having to kind of chip away at the foundation every year, projected forward 20, 30 years, you could be talking about multiple 6, even 7-figure swings in the value of that account. You're actually not allowed to take the money out until you're 59 and a half years old. And once you're 59 and a half, you start taking the money out, you pay taxes on it at that time, but it's been able to grow with all the taxes deferred. And just if you look at the math, it makes a huge difference in how much your money can be worth in the future. So But again, most people don't even start thinking about IRAs and retirement investments until they're 30, 35. They have kids, they have college to pay for, and they go, oh, I got to get my act together and start thinking long term. Honestly, it's a function of the teenage brain, and I don't want to sound like a fuddy-duddy old parent, but the reality is that from a biological child adolescent development standpoint, the human brain doesn't actually fully mature until about 22, 23 years old. And the last piece of the brain to kind of fully cement is the part of the brain that really, really forecasts future consequences. That's why younger people tend to be a little more reckless or a little more impulsive, because they don't think through the long-term consequences. So understand, as a teenager, this is as important as any of the tactics I'm going to talk about in this video, is understanding your own psychology. At 14, 15, 16 years old, you essentially have one arm tied behind your back in terms of the natural forecasting and projecting of how life's going to be 10, 20, 30 years from now. You probably know that. Like, as I'm saying that, you're probably like, yeah, that is kind of how I am. So just know that. It doesn't mean it's wrong for you. It's actually totally right. You can't help it. It's literally how the brain's developing. But I think we can all just objectively and logically say, I mean, I do know that in the future I want to have a good life, and I know that I don't like having, getting punked around and told where to go and what to do and how to dress and what I can say. And you don't have to think 30 years in the future to know that you like freedom, and you probably always will. So wouldn't life be better if you didn't have to slave away at a job for the next 40 years? At least, sell yourself on that truth and say, okay, I'm willing to do some things now, even though I don't feel like it. I'm willing to do some things now that can dramatically alter that reality for my future, and do some of these things. So you kind of got to build a structure in your own life to protect yourself from your still developing brain and not handicap yourself. Again, I don't mean to talk down or anything, but that's just the reality of brain development. So anyway, banking history, credit history, Roth IRA, start putting money in as soon as possible, post-tax money that can grow in a tax-deferred environment. And then step 3, and here I promised I wasn't going to sound like a grumpy old grown-up, but step 3 I actually have marked on my list right here, be a grown-up, part 1. Be a grown-up, part 1. And basically what I mean by that is, first of all, and I say be a grown-up, but actually be a better grown-up than most grown-ups, because most grown-ups don't actually do this. Avoid consumer debt. Do not go run up balances on revolving credit cards, buying crap that you can't afford and you probably don't need, and then get stuck paying interest payments month after month and have to go down a whole other rabbit hole of crap. Just avoid that altogether, and don't go into consumer debt, and also get a job. Now, I know that this whole video I've been saying these are the things you can do to change your future so you don't have to get a job. But the key is starting now with the things that we've talked about, being able to establish banking and credit history. Well, for that, you need some money. Being able to fund a Roth IRA or get your retirement and investment vehicles going. Well, for that, you need money. Not racking up debt, but you still have to live and you still have bills to pay. So for that, you need money. So in the short term, get a job. Even in my 20s, when I knew that I was completely psychologically unemployable and I just did not play nice with the idea of having a boss, I still had to make money, and I became a professional piano player, and I worked probably twice as many hours as I would have if I'd just gotten a job, and made half as much money as I would have if I'd just gotten a job. So in hindsight, it's like, man, I wish I would have just gotten a job. It would have made things easier. But whatever you got to do, you got to make some money. So be a grown-up. Part 1 is don't go into consumer debt. Get a job. Frankly, get as good a job as you can and start soon. One of the things we're going to talk about here in a moment is college. Unless you know exactly why you need to go to college, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, don't go to college. Go make money and start funding your life. And if you get clear on, man, I really want to do something. I really want to go into electrical engineering, or I really want to go into social work or something. Okay, great. Then go get a college degree. Then it makes sense. But don't just go to college and blow money and rack up debt just because you think that's what you're supposed to do after high school. Go sell cars, go sell insurance, go sell something, go do something, go, do a trade that generates income. Start making money as soon as you can and as much as you can, while you're young, while you're not tied down to kids, while you're not tied down to a marriage, while you're not even tied down to a market. You have flexibility. You can move. You can go where the business is, go where the jobs are. Make money as much as you can. Okay. Anyway, like I said, I got ahead of myself there with the college thing. But next on my list is Be a Grown-Up Part 2. And that means make a budget and actually live by the budget and implement two things. One is forced savings and one is forced investing. Now, forced savings, the distinction there basically means every month or even every week, every pay period, however you get paid, decide on some minimal amount of money that you're going to divert into an account where it just sits there and you have it in case you ever need it. It's your cushion in case you go through a period where you lose your income, right? And most young people don't do this, and they go through this bumpy road and they end up living back with their parents, and it's a complete hard reset and their whole life seems to fall apart. And so start doing forced savings at a very young age. And by forced savings, what I mean is make it automatic. Don't make it something you have to remember to do. Just have it happen automatically via a preset recurring transfer in your bank. And then also forced investment. And forced investments is basically the same concept, only the money goes out into an account where you don't touch it. Like force invest into your Roth IRA. What if you set your paycheck so that $100 of every paycheck goes into this Roth IRA that you literally can't pull out without a penalty until you're 59 and a half years old? It takes a lot of discipline and frankly some courage to do that and the discipline to live below your means so that you don't need that $100. You're not constantly saying, I need that $100 to pay bills, but you will be so glad you did. So Be a Grown-Up Part 2 is make a budget, live by the budget, do forced savings to build a cushion, and forced investment to build your long-term retirement and or capital for future investment. And then step 5, that's actually the one about don't go to college unless you know exactly why you're going to college. Don't take on the debt. Don't lose the time. There's an opportunity cost. It's not just the cost of paying for college. It's the opportunity cost of not being able to work and make money while you're in college. So unless you're crystal clear on what you're studying and why you need that degree in order to do this thing that you really want to do, I think it makes very little sense in the modern world to just go to college. I mean, you look at how expensive it is and what the actual return on the investment is and how most people spend at least the first 10 years of their career, and many people end up having to restructure their student debt into 25-year terms. 25 years. So you graduate at 22, you're not free of the debt till you're 47? Come on. And a lot of people, they just got the degree because it's what they felt like they were supposed to do. And then the final step is actually, as soon as possible, at as young an age as possible, get involved in some sort of business or investing that can generate income and start to create a parallel path to your primary income from your job, something that you're not actually having to work for every single day. And that's where that forced investment is for, but actually becoming educated and strategic about what you do with that capital so that it can grow into something that hopefully by the time you're 25 or 30 or 35, it can actually replace your primary income and completely free up your time. Now, personally, I recommend 2 categories of investments or businesses. They're kind of business/investments because they're both sort of a hybrid of active and passive. One is online business. That's what did it for me. I completely changed my life with affiliate marketing, and then later I created an agency. I did e-commerce. I've created products. I've done information marketing. There's a whole world of online business, digital business out there. If you're interested in learning more about that, I do have a company called Entre Institute that teaches modern entrepreneurship. We focus primarily on digital business. We also talk about real estate, which is the other thing I want to say, which is real estate investing can be incredibly powerful. It does generally take a little more capital to get into in a meaningful way. So like for myself, I started primarily with internet business and was able to generate cash flow from that I could turn into or convert into real estate. But I also started real estate actually at an earlier age than I started digital business and was able to get some traction there too. So it's not one before the other. They're just both great vehicles. And this isn't a big plug for Entre, but within Entre, we do talk strategy about what to focus on and such. But really, for most people that need things that they can go into that don't require a ton of specialized skill or a ton of natural talent, frankly, like you don't want to go into things that only work if you're good enough. You want to go into things where there's just some basic fundamentals that work regardless, and then obviously your goal is to get better at those things. Real estate and internet business both check that box for me, and they have. Those are the 2 vehicles I've used to really prop myself up financially, and that I encourage most young people to become educated about. So that's it. That's your 6 steps. Let me recap those. Again, building credit and banking history from as young an age as possible, getting a secured credit card and a checking account, setting up a Roth IRA so that you can deposit post-tax money into tax-deferred growth. Step 3 is be a grown-up part 1, which is don't have any consumer debt and do get a job as soon as possible that pays as well as possible. Step 4, be a grown-up part 2. And again, I realize how condescending that sounds, and it's not meant to, because frankly, I'm actually saying be more grown-up than most actual grown-ups. Because if you look at the data, most grown-ups totally screw these up. But anyways, be a grown-up part 2 is actually making a budget, implementing and living by the budget, and within that budget, including both forced savings and forced investment, probably into the Roth IRA. Step 5 is don't go to college, don't rack up student debt unless you know exactly why you're doing it and it was the only way to achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve. And you are so deeply committed to that goal that you're not going to like change your mind in 5 years and regret it and all that. I mean, really, really think long and hard if that's just something you absolutely have to do. Like, for example, I have a daughter. She has known from virtually as young as, the first day she could talk, she knew she wanted to grow up and be a nurse. She's going to need to go to college. If you want to be a nurse, you have to go get a nursing degree. That's fine. That makes sense. But you got to have that level of clarity to know that it's really worth it. And then finally, step 6, focus on some sort of low risk, high potential return investment or business vehicle that you can grow in parallel to your primary income. And again, I recommend digital business or real estate. And the reason, remember, I said low risk and high potential return. Those are the 2 vehicles where I see the most potential return with the least possibility of a calamity. Digital business, because it's just low overhead and you don't have to invest a lot to get the business started. Real estate, because it's grounded in actual physical real estate, which means it's despite, as long as you don't get dramatically over leveraged, then despite all the horror stories you've heard from economic recessions, it's very low probability of losing a huge amount of money in real estate as long as you're smart about it. But it does take more money generally to get started with in a secure way. Where people get into trouble is when they're just buying properties at 100% leverage. They have no capital, they have no equity, therefore they have no room for values to change. And that's a whole other video. But my point is, in general, digital business and real estate, if you're properly capitalized, are the 2 best low risk, high potential return investment and business vehicles you can get involved in parallel to your primary income while you launch your life. And those are the 6 steps. Do it starting tomorrow. If you're watching this video and it's like 9 o'clock at night, be like, okay, I'm going to go to bed now. I'm going to get up in the morning. I'm going to at least take one actionable, defined step in the direction of what Jeff just said. One of the great tragedy, as somebody who owns an internet education company, Entre Institute, we have thousands of students. I can say this as an empirical fact. One of the great tragedies of the modern world is the amount of information that people consume, but they don't actually implement. So I want to give you this big encouragement to actually do this stuff. If you're young, please start now. You will thank me forever. You will thank whoever showed you this video forever. It will change your life. When you're 25, 35, 40 years old, and you actually get to go to your kids' school and be a part of their life and volunteer and be the cool mom or dad who's not always stressed out because of a job, you will be like, I am so glad I did those 6 things that guy said on that YouTube video. So take this to heart, really. And if you want more, advice and guidance and strategy about how to create an awesome life, that's what my whole channel here is about. I'll invite you to subscribe. I believe very much that life is not only supposed to be awesome, but that all the tools and all the information are out there in the public domain for any of us to create an awesome life if we'll just be proactive, do the work, and block out the people who think that it's actually supposed to be hard and think that suffering is noble. Suffering is noble to a point because it toughens us and it teaches us about what matters in this life. But to suffer beyond what's necessary isn't noble. It's just asinine. It's just being a victim. With all the knowledge and all the tools out there, whether it's digital marketing, whether it's real estate, and there's other things too, but those are the 2 things I focus on. willful ignorance, staying oblivious to the opportunities, or staying scared, so scared and brainwashed that like, oh, those things don't work, I can't try those things. Like that's not noble. That's foolish. And I know because I had to bicker and argue and push back against people that told me I was crazy for pursuing those things. And yet I get the last laugh because I'm 40 and I don't have a job. And I haven't had a job since I was 16 years old because I always went against the grain, and I always knew there were other paths out there, and I always pursued them. And frankly, now it's a whole lot easier than it was when I got started. So, all that to say, if you're interested in learning more about how to have this type of life, this life less ordinary, subscribe to my channel. I share strategies about marketing, entrepreneurship, business, sales, investing, health, relationships, communication, psychology, personal development. These are passions of mine. And frankly, I have time to pursue these passions because all my time isn't sucked up just surviving like most people. And I'm really, really passionate and a believer that it's almost my duty to pay that forward and to share with people information about how to make that possible for themselves. So I invite you to subscribe. Click the little button, the little bell next on the button so that you actually get notified when new videos come out. And I appreciate in advance your support and your patronage of my channel and any videos that you watch in the future. I've appreciated your time thus far, and I'll look forward to seeing you on future videos. Thanks so much.